Hi, Jonathan York from Bay Financial Partners, looking at the investment markets. Really a pretty major week for US equities as we head into sort of Thanksgiving holiday, but the Dow Jones has now sort of cracked 30,000. Now that's really quite a pretty major move and really comes on the back of obviously good news on the COVID vaccine, but also as well talk about Biden's new cabinet. And it looks like Janet Yellen, the former Fed chair, will be the new Treasury Secretary. Now that's obviously something the market liked. She's well respected, got a really good handle on the economy and how to sort of to get things moving, and really a pretty well chosen appointee for that post. Now on the vaccine front, still good news. You've got Pfizer, you've got Moderna out there, you've got AstraZeneca have come out from the UK as well now. Now their efficacy rate was only around 70%, but that can be tweaked that if you get sort of a half boost to start with, a full boost to start with, and then a further sort of top-up boost 4 to 6 weeks later, that efficacy rate then moves up to over 90%. And the big advantage with the AstraZeneca is that it's certainly much cheaper to produce and also a lot easier to get distributed as well. It doesn't have to be stored at such low temperatures. So that's certainly obviously good news on the COVID front. Really as the US is sort of experiencing sort of spikes really in many states now, and really trying to get on top of that. So as you head into this Thanksgiving holiday. Now, in terms of President-elect Biden and the transition, that has only just started to happen. The GSA, Trump's administration, has now come out and said they will start to work with the Biden administration for a transition. However, President Trump has still yet to give a concession speech. He has not conceded the election. He still keeps tweeting that they're sort of fighting on every front. But it's really sort of quite interesting because most of the legal cases brought forward before the courts are just being thrown out, some almost as soon as they get there, really without merit. What it seems is that they are sort of scrambling to get these cases sort of brought forward and sort of put before the courts, but not really well thought out. And it's just a question, I say, of sort of working through the procedures. They sort of get to court, they get thrown out without merit, no evidence, no standing, and then they move on to the next case or look to try and appeal that verdict. So really quite interesting, but they say, really pretty major move with the GSA looking to actually now work with the Biden sort of transition team. And that's really quite crucial because now they get some funding and can start actually sort of making plans, etc. And obviously the big sort of situation is, their COVID response. And that's really on the back of the US now getting over 12 million cases and over 256,000 deaths. Now, obviously, on the back of the surge in global share markets, oil is still doing pretty well, up, above that sort of $40 a barrel. And so it would just be interesting to see how it sort of trades through the northern hemisphere winter. In the UK, they've announced that the lockdown will now cease early December. And that's really sort of trying to get on top of the virus as they head into the sort of Christmas holidays. And once you come out of that lockdown, they'll then have a tiered sort of response depending on the cases in that sort of area. But there is some sort of encouragement out there. There is some talk that, if you're on a tier 1, potentially you might be able to have as many as sort of 4,000 at sort of sporting events and sort of concerts, etc., providing they observe social distancing. So obviously that's a pretty big carrot out there, sort of trying to encourage people to, work on this lockdown, make sure you get on top of the virus, and then you will get some benefits at the end of it. Also as well in the UK, they're still sort of trying to nut out that sort of Brexit deal. That's really pretty much flown under the radar with all the sort of COVID news, but they are still trying to get that deal sorted out. Closer to home in Australia, you've still got that partial lockdown in southern Australia. As once the border started to reopen, there was a little bit of a spike in cases in COVID, so they had a little bit of a sort of a localized shutdown. But interestingly, that the Victoria New South Wales border has reopened. Now that's obviously good news for the Australian economy, as things get back up and running. Here in New Zealand, the economy is doing pretty well, really buoyed by a rampant housing market. And it's sort of quite interesting. Finance Minister Grant Robertson has written to the Reserve Bank, asking if they can try and cool the housing market. Now that's obviously quite interesting because you've got record low interest rates, which leads to record low mortgage rates. You've got a supply-demand imbalance, but yet the finance minister is looking for the Reserve Bank to try and pull a rabbit out of the hat. And again, quite interesting because, Labour in their first term, having just managed to get re-election, they were supposed to build quite a number of new houses under their Kiwi Build, which really was an abject failure. But given the record low interest rates, and really you can't see interest rates going up because the economy really just can't support higher interest rates, you can't see the housing market cooling off much. Now, obviously, on the back of those low interest rates, savers are suffering a little bit, and it is quite interesting with the sort of bonds in the marketplace out there. Of course, have that 7-year and 10-year bond. 7 years looking around sort of 1.4 to 1.5, 10 years looking around 1.7 to 1.8. Now, they're obviously pretty low interest rates if you're looking at that over that sort of time period. Really in New Zealand, it really is that search for yield. On the back of these low interest rates, people are looking for income. It is really pretty tough out there in the sort of fixed interest or sort of term deposit environment. Now, on the back of those low interest rates, if you are looking for income options, there are plenty of alternatives available, plenty of decent dividend shares out there. And if you're interested in discussing what is available, call us on 0800 867 323 or go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.